Life after death, only 30.3% of people in Iran believe in life after death. Heaven and hell, 30.1%. When they asked religion, so to give you an idea of how much disgust they have for organized religion in the country, even if they identify as a Muslim, only 27.8% believe in religion more broadly. So like less than the percent that are Shia, even the state religion.
So there are people who answered on this survey, I am a Shia Muslim. I don't believe in religion. That happened?
Yes. Maybe because they consider themselves ethnically Shia Muslim, or maybe
that makes sense. Yeah.
They just have so much, like,
Which
in the
I
same
guess
way
goes
that
to show, like, the
I might
extent to
say
which making the religion the rule kills the religion.
an overwhelming majority, 90%, describe themselves as hailing from religious families. So this happened within a generation. They lost. Like when people are like, how quickly could we really lose kids? That quickly. This isn't like you do this and they control the country for a few generations. You went from 90% coming from a religious family to 27.8% saying that they identify as religious.
Would you like to know more?
Hello, Simone. I'm excited to be here with you today. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about two things. One is how Iran has rapidly been losing its rate of religiosity with mass deconversions. We're talking like only 40% of Iran's population identifies as Muslim now.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And this is in a religious theocratic state. Then we're going to be talking about their crashing fertility rates, despite all of the efforts that they've been trying to do to reverse this.
Okay.
And I want to couch all of this in this idea that people have that if only their religious group controlled the government of the country that they were in, that they would be able to do more to keep their religion alive. And this in the United States, this is an instinct I hear so frequently from Catholics. And I point out that Catholic majority countries have some of the lowest fertility rates in the world. They have some of the quickest deconversion rates in the world. And they're like, well, they're not enforcing their rules strictly enough. If they enforce them even more strictly, it would fix these problems. And I'm like, well, great counterexample is Iran. So Iran is enforcing them more strictly than any of the Catholic countries, and it appears to have an increased level and an increased rate of deconversion because of this. In fact, I will point out that it's not just they're leaving Islam. Fewer people in Iran believe in God than in the United States.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so they're not just converting out of the hard culture. They are just nothing matters anymore. Nihilism.
Oh yeah, and this is concentrated among younger populations as well, so it's only going to increase. And the problem here, and people get this through your head, if you take control of a government and try to force people to follow the tenets of your faith, it causes mass deconverts. This is the core reason. This inclination to do this by Catholics is the core reason why their culture is completely falling apart right now in terms of the areas where it has power, right? Do not try to force your pornography bans. Do not try to force your bans on whatever, like all of these weird, like religious bans and everything like that. And it's like, oh, if we can just ban all of this stuff, we can just ban gay people from getting married. If we can ban, it's like this actually causes mass deconverts. Because
I think forcing people, not the right thing. When leaving means death or social rejection, yes, but forcing it.
Well, in Iran, if it's public, it can mean death. But
deconversion or just not following the rules, because there's a difference.
What?
There's a difference between deconversion and not following the rules.
In Islam, deconvert is considered like really, really bad. I'm pretty sure that you're supposed to be killed if you're a deconvert by Sharia law. It's not the same as being like a normal atheist or a normal non-Muslim. I don't know.
Why are people responding that they are no longer religious?
Because that's how much they disrespect the space, the state. We're going to go over this. This is like 40,000 people in this study. So, not a small population sample either. As a note here, while it is not specifically illegal in Iran to deconvert, the way Iranian law works is wherever something isn't specifically in the legal code, judges are allowed to refer to Sharia law. So it is functionally both illegal and the death penalty to deconvert in Iran. And I just think that what you're seeing here is a mass knowledge that, yeah, well, nobody really believes that anymore. And I think it's really easy to see why. And I want to get people in this mindset before we go into the data, because it's going to be very data heavy, okay? You're a kid, you grew up in a state, right? Your parents don't feel the need to really, teach you how to resist people trying to deconvert you, teach you why your traditions are valuable, teach you why all of the restrictions of your traditions are valuable, because the state does that, right? Like, this is the thing that the state does. This is the thing that your local mosque is going to do. This is the thing that so then you get online because you have access to the internet and you see all of these arguments against all of this. And all of this to you, it doesn't just feel silly, like it feels bureaucratic to you. The reason why you wear the veil, the reason why you do the X, it's because it's the law of the government. It's lost any sort of like religious magic. It is now just what you have to do. You don't not use porn because you don't use porn and that's a thing that you do for God and to be a good person, and you don't do it because it's the law. All right. And then when you're breaking that, you're not breaking a religious rule, you're breaking a legal rule. And it's much easier to start breaking legal rules from an individual moral perspective than religious rules.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like that study that they did with parents and preschool pickup times, where they thought, oh, it really sucks that parents aren't picking their kids up from preschool on time. So let's just charge an extra fee per minute that they're late picking kid. And then what happens? Suddenly everyone is super late picking up their kids, because now it's not a moral, I'm a shitty person for picking up my kid late kind of thing. It's there's a fee, I'll just pay the fee. And yeah, you're right. I think making it statutory, making it unromantic, making it less about your self-image and your morality and who you are as a person, and more about these are the rules and these are the costs of breaking them, ruins it. Yeah.
So let's, and to give an idea of what this has had on their fertility rate, by the way, in 2022, Iran's deputy health minister warned that the country could fall into a quote unquote demographic black hole within
Black
7
hole?
years.
This doesn't sound good.
In 2024, projections indicated that Iran's population could potentially halve by the end of the century, with nearly half of the country classified as elderly by then.
Gosh, this is not good.
Who's going to be supporting them? They're gonna need to go full Logan's Run. Like, this is, people who don't know Logan's Run, and Logan's Run is a world where they have to kill everyone after a certain age, because you cannot support a population where half of it is on Social Security.
Yeah.
All right. So this is from a piece, really interesting piece, because they really struggled to get an idea of what Iranians actually believed, because the government says 99.5% of the population is Muslim. And they're like, that doesn't seem right. And you can't exactly knock door to door. And so they developed this sophisticated system for actually getting really, good data on what people of Iran sought through a survey mechanism that ended up recruiting 40,000 people over the age of 19. And they used a number of demographic variables to assure that they were collecting a representative sample of the country. I don't want to go into all of that. Just know that, like, they are doing that. In terms of the big thing that has changed, it's been the growth of internet, with 70% of adults in the country now using at least one social media platform. So ideas that are coming out of social media are completely permissive in society here. And another thing I note here is we want to talk about why, and what I want to investigate here is why at the end. Why in Israel are people staying so strong to the faith, where in Iran they're leaving the faith? You have two semi-theocratic governments, two semi-theocratic states. Why does Islam suck so much when compared to Judaism at retaining membership? And it appears it sucks even more than Catholicism when it's in control. It appears that Muslims really only work when they're a minority population in an environment, or an incredibly poor population, poorer than Iran.
Do you think they would do better as a small group within a hostile environment? I mean, that's part of why we think maybe
I do.
Yeah. I mean, when you feel like there's something to fight for, when you feel like there's some pride in you being you, because it's not the default, it's the exception. It's what makes you exceptional and special, right?
Yeah, 100%. But I think that some religions are like built for the fight. And when you don't have the fight, they fall apart. Islam requires an enemy to work. I won't say it's kind of like Nazis, but like sometimes a government is set up where it's an ideology that really requires a consistent battle and fight to stay healthy. And the version of Islam that they are practicing in Iran, it worked really well when it was fighting against the Shah, when it was fighting against it doesn't work well when they control everything and it's only fighting outsiders who most people see as like a more conceptual threat than real threat. It's not like Iran has been seriously attacked by outsiders in a very, very long time. In fact, the government might do well by letting outsiders attack it and have a war there instead of,
Well, shouldn't they be able to leverage what's happening geopolitically in the area to do that? I guess not, because they're more acting as the aggressor in all cases
now. The US are going to attack you for decades, half a century at this point. People are like, yeah, sure. Like, you've been telling us the US is a great Satan forever. Like, it really does not feel like they care that much. And Israel has done a very good job of, while it attacks Iran's nuclear scientists regularly, it doesn't do much to terrorize the average person to make them feel like Israel is really their existential enemy.
Yeah.
A great example of this is how religious Ireland was during the times of conflict, but after those were settled, how quickly religiosity began to drop pretty dramatically. So, for people who may not know, for a long time, Ireland was basically a hot war between a Catholic and Protestant population, with the Catholics being the majority group that were being, in their mind, oppressed by Protestant outsiders and a Protestant minority population. So if you go back to 2006, 90% of Ireland identified as Catholic. And now, 2022, it's only 69%. So you get a rapid drop. And I have actually noticed this, that the forms of Catholicism that come out of regions where they had consistent and persistent conflict with Protestants up until recently are typically stronger than the forms of Catholicism where the Catholics controlled everything. This is generally Northern Europe Catholicism versus Southern Europe Catholicism. And it's the same with forms of Protestantism. The forms of Protestantism where they were in conflict with other religious groups and you needed to define yourself as Protestant against some alternative, that's where you got stronger sort of channels of the Protestant tradition. But again, this all seems intuitive to me as to why this would be the case. I mean, I'm just considering myself growing up. If I knew there was an active war between Protestants and Catholics in my area, I'm going to spend a lot of time figuring out what it means to be either a Catholic or a Protestant and invest in that. If I know that everyone in my area is just by default X, well then, if my teen rebellion phase, I'm going to rebel against X because that's just the authority. That's what everyone does. And I will intergenerationally lose my faith really quickly. So, in contrast with state propaganda that portray Iran as a Shia nation, only 32% explicitly identified as Shia, while 5% said they were Sunni Muslim, 3% Sufi Muslim, another 9% said they were atheists, along with 7% who prefer the label of spirituality. Among other neglected religions, 8% said they were Zoroastrian, which we interpret as a reflection of Persian nationalism and a desire for an alternative to Islam, rather than a strict adherence to the Zoroastrian faith, while 1.5% said they were Christian. And some people know we consider Zoroastrianism as one of the true faiths. I note here, like, this means that if you are looking at the atheist plus spiritualist plus Zoroastrian faith there, it's almost as big as the Shia Muslim population.
That is really crazy, because I always thought of Iran as Shia. That's crazy. Okay.
Oh, hold on, it's bigger. Yeah, no, but actually, if you include agnostics, let's see if I can do the math here. Yeah, it might be bigger than the Shiite population, which is crazy. Oh, none? None is huge. Sorry. Atheist is 8.8%. Okay. None is 22.2%. Just none plus atheist plus agnostic is bigger than Shia.
Oh, they are really losing God. Okay. That's
That
Do you
is
think a lot of this is just a lack of hope for the future? It's hard for me to say. The only Iranian person I've met is that woman we met through Renaissance Weekend, who was super like, Iran is great. I love Iran. I mean, she also was in the United States and not planning to go back to Iran. So I'm not exactly sure what was going on there. Maybe she kind of came from an Iran that is gone now. But
no, because those Iranians typically are like not, I mean, they're not pro-Iran in the way that you're thinking. So there's like modern Iranians who are pro-Iran, and I know this group because I have friends in this group, but I also have Persian friends. And the Persians are the earlier immigrant group who we've joked about them in previous episodes. Culturally, they are very different from what you would think of as other Muslim populations, and they are a very secularized population. They are very consumerist, secularized, mercantile, not like you typically would stereotype most Muslims. And I think that Islam as a religion, you almost could argue it might have converted this region, but it was never really optimized for this cultural or ethnic group. And so as soon as they leave an environment that is, forcing it on them, they leave, or as soon as they have access to external technology, they leave the religion. I just think that there isn't a strong harmony between the Persian ethnicity and the Islamic religion.
Jahar, my friend, there are a lot of beautiful women out here today.
Karim, my friend, you speak the truth.
I do what I can.
Wow. Right? Blip.
Sublimes.
They don't look Persian.
Sure they do. Just have to gel the hair, put on a silk shirt, some gold chains, and tons of cologne. Persian. See?
Wow.
I almost feel like, actually, like Zoroastrianism. Like, Zoroastrianism seems to work for Persians. If I'm talking about like a harmony between a religious system and an ethnic group, the audaciousness of all the fire stuff and all the like, come on, it's very, let's get my gold curtain rod.
All they want is to make the place really nice. We're going to put down some lovely blue carpet and gold curtain rods.
I knew it!
We often argue that Trump is a Persian. He's a Persian soul that somehow got caught in a white guy's body.
Persian aesthetics. Yeah, he's trans Persian.
If I walked into the house and you showed me, you're like, if you show me like, okay,
if you toured through his house and you were like, what is the ethnicity of the person who owns this abode?
No, not even that. I mean, I walked into a Trump house, right?
Okay.
And there was a Persian guy there and there was a white guy there. And the white guy said, "This is my house." A guy who looked like Trump said, "This is my house." I'd actually start laughing. I'd assume it was a joke. I'd be like, you cannot be serious. This is obviously this guy's house. But anyway, as I said, Trump is our first Persian president.
I'd love, I've never seen this. I've seen plenty of biographies of Trump. I've never seen any analyses of the Trump interior decorating aesthetic, which is really a thing. It is a distinct thing. He has a sense of style. It's consistent.
His choice in wives was Persian too. His wives act like Persian girls who I've seen before.
Yeah, but where did this aesthetic come from? Because he was theoretically raised among, he went to that military high school. I mean, you'd think it'd be very waspy, very Ralph Lauren, very, like a sort of classic Kennedy American.
He grew up in New York, adjacent to the real estate industry.
Okay.
And okay, how do I say this without coming off as... So the real estate industry, when contrasted with other industries, attracts a lot of people who like the type of industries that attract, let's say, mercantile people, like car sales. And
let's say, okay. I'll put this differently. If you look, for example, at real estate reality TV shows, it is known for ostentatiousness. It is known for the over-the-top brand designer outfits and spending. And I guess there's a high correlation, you're trying to say, between the most ostentatious way that someone could show their wealth and Persian aesthetics. And there just happens to... Okay.
That is not what I'm saying. Okay. I am saying that Persians would disproportionately be in industries that are low tech, high mercantilism, like real estate, car sales, stuff like that. That's generally what I've seen. Rug sales is something they're known for. Like, Persians seem to do really good at low tech mercantile industries. And that is the industry that Donald Trump cut his teeth in. That is the industry he was raised in. I would not be surprised if he had a lot of Persian or Farsi or whatever you want to say, formative friends in his life, where he
Yeah.
developed his aesthetics in both the women that he
Had
chose.
great dinner parties and was like, "Where'd you get this table?" And they were like, "Ah,
exactly. That is my read of where, because I cannot, like, genuinely, it is baffling to me. Like you're like, oh, you at a boarding school. If I was invited to a friend's house and it looked like this, you'd be making fun of them for weeks. Like, so I went to an AI and I first put in wealthy WASP interior design, and this is what it looked like. And then I put in wealthy Persian interior design, and here is what it looked like. Like, even look at the accents on the chairs and stuff like that. They are exactly coded to Trump's taste. And I'd say that for me, just the real sin of Trump's interior decorating, and how I know that he did not grow up coding to waspy culture, is there are no random pictures of boats or cottages or horses or overly expensive model boats. And by the way, I am joking here. I as little as I get the golden curtains that you see in Persian interior design, I also do not get the pictures of boats and horses and random cottages that you see in waspy interior design. It makes, why are you doing that? Did you live on this boat? No, you didn't. Why boat? Is it just like the safe thing to have a picture of?
Yeah, I wonder what the houses he grew up in looked like as well, because I doubt that they looked like the houses that he paints now. But anyway, it's interesting. Yeah.
But anyway, the point here I'm making is that I'm pretty sure, or I would be genuinely surprised if this wasn't directly picked up from Persian. Because, like, if you look at Persian women, like, you know, I obviously I have a lot. I've had a lot of in college Farsi friends, because it was like a common thing at St. Andrews. There's this big group, and anyway, they're very big in DC. They have a pretty big presence there, and anyway, so their women are hypersexualized often in terms of, like, when you see it on the reality TV shows and stuff like that. When you see a Persian woman, right? You know, very New Jersey-fied, I guess I'd say, but like a little higher class than that, which really looks like the women who Donald Trump goes after. And attractive. I'm not gonna lie. Like, they're an attractive group. They're definitely not an issue there. But I think many people would be like, how can you say that his women are Persian in aesthetics and not European when they are European women? And I'm like, okay, well, they're Eastern European women, and they, one, and two, they would not be seen as high class. For example, if you took your kids home from boarding school and they met women who looked like most of his wives, again, you get made fun of. Right? Like, if I took my friends to my house and I had a mom like his wife.
I'm actually thinking of that scene in Legally Blonde where Elle Woods is looking at like a yearbook or something of the like kind of woman that her ex-boyfriend is trying to date because he's trying to become like a waspy politician.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, more unfortunate looking women.
And she's like dumpy looking and like,
Yeah,
you know, but that's the
dumpy
thing.
and unfortunate. Yeah.
If you're dating in these waspy circles, which I learned to code switch to at a young age, right? Like, growing up in one of these political families, that scene is very accurate as to what you are told to look for, right? Not this ostentatious, ultra feminized version of a woman, right?
Right, because that's who you have your affairs with, not marry. Yes.
He keeps marrying the people he's supposed to be having affairs with.
No. Well, I think he's just like, I think he's a businessman. He's like, why can't I have my cake and eat it too? I'm going to marry the person I want to have the affair with, and I'm going to have the affairs with additional ones, because why would I want to have one that's not also hot?
Right.
And that's logical.
And again, I pass no judgment. I'm just talking like cultural normativity. I refuse to believe that he got this from like WASP culture in a boarding school. There was some other influence in this man's life. But anyway, to continue.
No, it definitely did not come from WASP culture, because there's no way that could come from WASP culture. We can all agree that it didn't come from WASP culture. I mean, even like Benjamin Franklin, who loved hanging around Versailles, right, is inventing highly practical things like the Franklin stove. You know, he's not out there making gilded devices. He's making highly practical money-saving devices. It's not an American thing.
Actually, if anyone in the comments has any ideas here, I would love to hear them. Where did Donald Trump pick up his Persian aesthetics?
Anyway, where were we? Iran.
So
It's
anyway,
screwed.
which of the following do you believe in? We're
Okay.
going over some stats here.
Okay. Okay.
So 78.3% believe in God compared to the US, which dipped to a new low of 81% recently. So many more Americans believe in God. Life after death, only 30.3% of people in Iran believe in life after death. Less than 40% of people in Iran believe in life after death. That is wild. Like out of all the religions, they're like, there's probably no life after death. Heaven and hell, 30.1%. Less than a third. Interesting when they asked religion. So to give you an idea of how much disgust they have for organized religion in the country, even if they identify as a Muslim, only 27.8% believe in religion more broadly. So like less than the percent that are Shia, even the state religion.
So there are people who answered on this survey, I am a Shia Muslim. I don't believe in religion. That happened?
Yes, maybe because they consider themselves ethnically Shia Muslim, or maybe
Yeah, that
because
makes
they
sense. Yeah.
they just have so much, like in
Which
the
I
same
guess
way
goes
that
to show like the
I might
extent to
say-
which making the religion the rule kills the religion. Now people lose their religion because it's the rule. I'm I'm a Democrat, but I don't believe in any democratic policies, because it's a like technical thing. And I get to
Yeah, but the point being is like I tell people you don't want to enforce this porn ban, and they're like, "Oh, you're doing this for your own degenerate means." I'm like, "Fucking look at the data. Stop being. I'm trying to help you. You will lose everything if you do this. Stop trying to enforce your. You do not want to ban gay marriage. No, no, no. This isn't about allying with gay people, even though I don't have a problem with gay people. I'm just saying, and I wouldn't want my kids to be gay. Like that's okay, right? Like you can have a cultural expectation for your own family that doesn't apply to other people's families. Okay? But when you attempt to apply it to other people's families, that's when you lose your own family and your entire culture. I would note here that this didn't used to be the case. This specifically emerged as the case because of the internet and the ease of finding alternate social environments if you are feeling ostracized from your birth environment. And the aggressive memes which spread online, which will attempt to actively deconvert your children. But here's something I find really interesting here. Jinn. So Jinn is like ghosts or like genies. 25.7% believe in them. So only a little less than believe in religion. So you still get the folk tales and everything like that. It's the organized religion that dies first, not a people's willingness to believe in the supernatural when you would try to force these values on people. The coming of mankind's savior, 25.6%. But yeah. Now, these numbers demonstrate that a general process of secularization known to encourage religious diversity is taking place in Iran. An overwhelming majority, 90%, describe themselves as hailing from believing or practicing religious families. So this happened within a generation. They lost. Like when people are like, how quickly could we really lose kids? That quickly. This isn't like you do this and they control the country for a few generations. You went from 90% coming from a religious family to 27.8% saying that they identify as religious. 47% report losing religion in their lifetime, and 6% said they changed from one religion to another in their lifetime, with younger people reporting higher levels of irreligiosity and conversions to Christianity than older correspondents. And here I'm putting a graph on screen that talks about some of this, and so you can see that this is a phenomenon that is primarily among young people. I went from being religious to non-religious. And yeah, what's interesting here is that it's not that much bigger in university educated people versus non-university educated people in Iran. And I think that that's the danger of state control, which is to say that for university educated people is 51%, non-university educated is 45.2%. Also here, urban versus rural, not as big as you'd think. Urban, 48.3% left religion, rural, 41.1% left religion. So if you're like, oh, well, if I live rurally, it'll be safe. 41.1% rural left religion. And here you also see the trend that we see historically is it's much more likely for men to leave religion than women. 49.9% of men, 0.1% away from 50% of men left their religion if they were raised religious. Whereas with women, it was 43.4%. Is that wild?
This is just hard for me to believe. It's so much worse than I could have imagined. If you had me at the beginning of this conversation, make some broad guesses as to how bad it is. I wouldn't get to this level. I'd be like, well, maybe half are not religious. Not that.
Yeah, no, it's shocking, and it shows how apocalyptic it is to attempt to enforce religion through a state. It does not work, especially in the age of the internet, or it might be exclusively in the age of the internet. I don't know, but one of my ancestors, Oliver Cromwell, learned this, and it's one of the reasons why I'm so fastidiously against it. Is I feel that we need to intergenerationally learn from our mistakes. And yes, art should be sinful. Yes, music should be sinful. Yes, video games are sinful. And if we had a state that banned all of these and everyone agreed with that and it worked to just ban them all, we'd have a more moral state. And he tried that. He tried to ban art and music and singing and plays and all of that, and Christmas and all of these sinful things, right? But what we learned is that causes an opposite effect to the effect you expect it to have. And that we need to learn to live in harmony with sin and just not aggrandize it instead of banning it. That appears to lead to very negative effects. But anyway, Assad said they occasionally drink alcohol in a country that legally enforces temperance. Wild. It's so hard to get alcohol in Muslim countries too.
How do they? Yeah, I wonder if it's just moonshine or something else, some black market.
Over 60% said they do not practice their obligatory daily Muslim prayers. Syncretus was a 2020 state-backed poll in which 60% reported to not observing the fast during Ramadan, the majority due to being quote-unquote sick. But the state-backed poll shows that this data is likely accurate, right? Because it's matching numbers here. In comparison, a comprehensive survey conducted in 1974, before the Islamic Revolution, over 80% said they prayed and observed the fast. The very last thing you want is for your religion to take over. To the integralists out there, you will fail even harder than you're failing right now.
Force it and you lose it, for sure.
We found a societal secularization was also linked to a critical view of religious governance system. 68% agreed that religious prescriptions should be excluded from legislation, even if they hold a parliamentary majority. So, okay, around 70% of people in Iran, presumably a theocracy, said that even if the religious side holds a majority, they should not be able to pass religious laws. See how crazy that is? But I also think this shows you the nature of the Persian people as well, where I'm like, Persians and Islam, there never has been like a well-matched ethnicity and religion here. And 72% oppose the law mandating all women wear a hijab, the Islamic veil. 72% oppose that. So you get what, 28% who are for this law? Like nobody.
Yeah, what's it going to take then for that to be reversed? I mean, obviously there were major protests about this, and then nothing happened. Most oppose it. The
government needs to be replaced, and they're getting scared now. They're getting scared because of Trump, and a lot of people they consider Trump like because he's actually hard on them. He actually and they've gotten to a state now where Peter Zeihan, fervent anti-Trumper, was doing a piece on Iran is seriously at risk of collapsing, like their current government, if they can't figure out a way to do a deal with Trump.
Yeah.
And they're panicking apparently about this.
Well, they should be. I mean, China's also sort of preemptively, I think, starting to hurt. I mean, it's hurting from Trump's last policies. I've been somehow YouTube discovered in my algorithm that I'm interested in what's going on in China, and I'm just getting constant recommended videos about how the middle class can no longer support themselves, that people with designer bags are doing gig work on rented e-bikes, and people aren't able to afford their rental properties anymore. They're going bankrupt, and a lot of this is sagging demand due to a growing old population that just doesn't consume as much. But a huge amount of this as well is that still China exports more than it imports, and they're going to have even more trouble with Trump's tariffs. So
yeah, a lot of countries that have been gaming the system are going to have a tough time of it with Trump, because he actually enforces this shit, and people are beginning to freak out in a lot of countries. And could this lead to government changes? I mean, I want the CCP to change. I want Iran's government to change. I think Iran actually, from a disposition perspective, has a if you like polled the average Iranian, you're going to get a country that would be an amazing ally to either the United States or Israel.
Right. So if Iran just had a bloodless revolution and basically the will of the people, as we understand it, though who knows if our understanding is accurate, was actually executed upon, and it became a more, we'll say, socially open, Zoroastrian leaning, culturally,
I'd love a Zoroastrian theocratic state.
but not by rule, just by theme.
Not by rule, yeah.
And they became allies. Suddenly, Israel and the United States, they would thrive. Can it happen? No, because nothing ever works out that nicely. Well, what would have to happen for that to happen? I guess the entrenched bureaucracy, the entrenched leadership, they would all just have to be killed suddenly. They would all have to suddenly die, because you can't.
Yeah,
there's no way they're going to let go a grip of power.
No,
And there's no way they're going to change their policies.
And there is no way, Simone. I mean, if we're talking logically here, right? It's not like that there's some other country that would have a vested interest in all the leaders of Iran randomly dying on one day that has shown the capacity to achieve feats like that in the past. That wouldn't happen, right? They're not all going to suddenly get window cancer like in pager cancer, you know. I'm just saying stranger things have happened to the enemies of this particular country than randomly. Oh, it's so weird. They all were dead one day, and Zoroastrian Bob found himself in the capital. What was that? Keep in mind, the Zoroastrian population is only like 1/3 the size of the Shia population. And a Persian nationalist Zoroastrian Iranian regime, I think, would be very interesting from a geopolitical perspective, because I think it would find a lot of common alliance with many of the power. But again, they're shrinking. So let's go into their fertility situation here, right?
Okay.
Oh, but before we go into that, in terms of religious diversity, 43% said that no religion should have the right to proselytize in public. Sorry, almost half of people in a theocratic dictatorship said that no one should be legally allowed to proselytize in public. Wait, and 41% believe that every religion should be able to proselytize in public. So the group that thinks that only Muslims should be is what, like 5% there or something?
No. Yeah, not great.
So Iran implemented very strict fertility restrictions in 1989. They implemented a bunch of anti-natalist policy.
Yeah, they're a great case study in why it's extremely hard to reverse anti-natalist policies after they've been heavily implemented. So for at least a decade, they basically like read the population bomb and were like, oh my God, we've got to do something about this. And they did, and they were very effective. And now they're discovering you can't just turn that around.
Yeah, in context. So from 1968 to the country doubled its population from 27 million to 55 million. And they were like, how are we going to keep feeding these people if we keep doubling like this, right? Because again, population bomb. It all made sense at the time. I don't believe people were being stupid. And the specific measures that they put in place here, I find pretty interesting. They had a family planning program reintroduction in 1989, where that had been dismantled after the Islamic Revolution, actually. So this is after the Islamic Revolution when all this stuff was put in place. They built a 2-child family model. The government began promoting a 2-child family model and a slowdown of population growth. They began to increase the availability of contraceptives. The Ayatollah Khomeini in 1980 issued a fatwa, or a religious edict, that declared Islam permits the use of contraceptives, providing religious backing for family planning support. They ran a media campaign. The government launched a media campaign encouraging women to limit their number of children and space out their pregnancies by 3 to 4 years to avoid pregnancy under 18 and over 35. So basically really limiting the number of kids they could have. Can you imagine limiting the pregnancies at 3 years? You'd be so sad.
Well, also it leads to poor family dynamics if you have kids that are so far apart in age. It's so much better if they're like back to back. Even if you're having only 2, you're better off back to back.
Well, I'm just glad that you're autistic and this is your special interest. So this led to a fertility crash. So in 1980, they had a genuinely unsustainable number of children, 6.58 average children per woman. In 1988, it had fallen to 5.5. By 1996, it had fallen to 2.8. In 2000, it had fallen to 2.1, and now it's at 1.6. But by what's not counted here is by 2012, it had fallen to 1.6. So a long time ago, by 2012, like more than a decade ago at this point, it had already fallen to this disastrous level of fertility. And what's interesting about Iran is they were one of the first countries to recognize this. And so they tried to reverse this. All right. So what did they start to do? They started to, and I think that this is really interesting. They reversed the antinatalist policies, but they also, in Iran, you get free land for families with 3 children or more.
So like 2 acres and a mule, but for having babies.
For house construction and childbearing, and marriage loans adjusted for economic conditions. So yeah, I asked more about this free land thing. I was like, wait, whoa, what?
Yeah.
So as of 2024, approximately 80,000 families have taken advantage of this. So this is a widely implemented policy.
Yeah, they're going for it.
In cities with under 500,000 people, couples who have their 3rd child are allocated land, given half to the mother and half to the father. So they're allocated land in the city. For cities with over 500,000 people, people with over 3 children are given land in a nearby area or smaller city or a new city.
So maybe you could build a rental property on it, I guess. What are you supposed to
why
do
would
with
you have
it?
a rental property in a city that hasn't been developed yet? It's
that seems kind of
in a new area. Well, I also understand you can't afford to give them land in the city that they live.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's not going to change a family's decision on having kids. That's not going to boost fertility.
As we have pointed out, you cannot get fertility up with handouts.
Yeah.
It has to be religion. And that's what they lost, was faith. Because you tried to force it on them rather than giving them a reason to believe. Which is what this channel is all about. The exact opposite approach of Iran. Okay, healthcare support. They gave free insurance coverage to rural mothers with 3 or more children, increased the number of infertility treatment centers, 90% of insurance coverage for infertility treatments in government centers. That's great policy, by the way. Legal and social measures, 9 months of maternity leave for women, efforts to prevent illegal abortions, promoting easy marriages. And they've done media campaigns and they've done education initiatives. And in 2021, they outlawed sterilization. They banned free distribution of contraceptives. They restricted access to abortion. And they mandated collection and sharing of patients' fertility and pregnancy histories. In 2023 to 2024, the Population Use Bill, harsher penalties for abortion, criminalization of providing abortion services or related information, discriminatory workplace practices favoring men. So now they're like actively discriminating against women. And this is what we tell people. You cannot find a way to make gender egalitarian cultures. They will not exist in the future. And we will see a rapid erosion of women's rights in our generation. The only and most feminist thing you can do is have kids. Lots of kids. Not like 2 kids, like a reasonable number, like 8 kids. Okay, if you're having less than 5 kids, can you call yourself a feminist anymore? I don't think so. You're a grifter who is riding on the petticoats of previous women who did the actually challenging stuff so that you could surf on it, right? Now, these measures have significantly impacted women's reproductive rights, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, your thoughts, Simone?
We need to remember when looking at pronatalist policies that people have different definitions of pronatalism. Some people hear pronatalism and they think family friendly, and that's fine and valid. When we talk about pronatalism, we talk about that which increases birth rate. There are lots of policies that we would love personally that are very family friendly. I would love to be given free land for each kid we have. I would love to be given tax breaks and handouts and free childcare and all sorts of benefits. But that isn't going to increase birth rates. And I think that that's a really important thing is just because something is family friendly doesn't mean that it will make families bigger or help families become bigger.
Yeah, well, and I think that honestly, the only solution is culture and religion. But that is not done through forcing your religion on people. People who think, oh, if we just forced harder, if we just pushed harder, it's like, no, it's the exact opposite effect. What you need to do is you need to as your religion has done historically. Like I mentioned Catholics here, right? Like Catholics are like, but our religion never updates. And I'm like, well, this life begins at conception thing is something that you started about 200 years ago as Pope Pius IX. It was not something your historic thinkers thought. And people are like nitpicking. They're like, well, they were definitely anti-abortion, even if they thought life began at conception or they weren't sure about that. And I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't a hard policy. This is a new thing. And it was created, if you look at the early thinkers, because somebody, was telling me, they're like, well, while they were anti-abortion, but they thought these dates. And I was like, okay, if you told Thomas Aquinas or Augustus of Hippo, there's this technology now called IVF, and if you don't use it, children are not going to exist. And parents who want children, if you understood the way that they viewed fertility and ensoulment, obviously they'd be pro anything that increases the number of children that are coming into the world, especially if you're denying children that a family intended to have but wasn't able to have because you denied them technology like this. But the point I'm making here is that so many of these policies where people are like, oh, I can just push this on people and it will work, it doesn't work. And so the alternative is to work on continuing to evolve and update your religious traditions to, one, resist the challenges of our time, but also to harmonize with reality as we understand it. And unfortunately, a lot of religions that were, I say, predicated on the average believer not having access to modern information about, like, Earth isn't the center of the solar system. Earth isn't the center of the solar system isn't the center of the universe. They worked because the average person didn't know that stuff. And then as the average person learned more and more and more, people begin to move away from this. And we can do a separate episode on the mass conversions away from Islam that we're beginning to see, where if we look at religions that are like uniquely harmed by access to information, Islam, unfortunately, is one of the top. Unfortunately, I'm saying, I don't know, like maybe not unfortunately, but Islam, unfortunately, just doesn't harmonize very well with our current understanding of reality. And I don't think that that's because the text of Islam doesn't. As we have pointed out from a lot of the text of Islam stuff we've gone over, the text of Islam is very different from what your average Muslim religious leader right now is trying to enforce on the Muslim population to get them to believe the text says. As we pointed out, the text is pretty clear that Islam as a religion is only meant for Arabs. It is only meant for people who have the Arab language. It says things like, I put this religion down for you in Arabic because that's the language you speak. You being the people who this religion is for. It's pretty clear. It was meant to live alongside other true religions like Christianity and Judaism, not antagonistic to them, but it has morphed from that into something that is not Islam, into some alternate bastard religion that some of the religious leaders push, and this is leading to its fragility. And so I'm not saying that like Islam needs to go, but like the iteration of Islam that is commonly practiced today is obviously not going to survive because it's not what the texts say, and it doesn't harmonize well with reality as like the facts or the science understands it. And I think what's interesting here is you're seeing even a faster conversion away from Islam than you are from other religious traditions which struggle with this harmonization as well, like Mormonism, for example, struggles with history. But the thing is at least with Mormons, you have two real advantages, right? One is Mormons can iteratively update their religion, and it's like a weirdly futurist religion in many ways. So they're like, yeah, well, if the church doesn't say this now, they'll be saying it in 10 years, so I'll just believe it now. I mean, that's what.
Well, and history has always been a creative pursuit. It's just that right now it's way too easy to fact check, and it hasn't been throughout most of human history.
Yeah, and it is wholesome in a way. What I'd say is a lot of people will castigate Mormons for, oh, you have all these bans on X, Y, and Z. And yeah, I don't agree with a lot of the Mormon bans, right? Like the ban on masturbation is buffoonery, but it's generally a wholesome movement, right? And I think that a lot of Muslims do not feel this way. They feel that people are trying to force them to live this way in a really aggressive and authoritarian and violent fashion. And so there is more to be gained from exploring and subverting these religious beliefs, which I think is, yeah, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And it's likely going to lead to, now, do I think that we're going to see like a massive Muslim fertility crash? No, but I think that we will see a unique fertility crash around Muslims who are open to challenging authority, who are educated, who are economically productive, and this leads to a lot of challenges. But as we've seen, even in Iran, apparently there's been a huge growth in the Christian community and the Zoroastrian community, which I even prefer more because I think that harmonizes more with their ethnic background. As people know, I generally think you shouldn't just choose a religion that hasn't been in your people for centuries. But anyway, what are your thoughts?
I largely agree with you. I'm just shocked by what has happened in Iran. I hope though that this is signs that a sea change will come, and that Iran is about to see a new golden age, because it is clear that where they are from a demographic standpoint and geopolitically and now religiously, that they are not in a sustainable position. That means that something is fundamentally going to change quite profoundly. And that's cool. So hopefully things will change for the better. And I'm just going to try to be optimistic about this.
I love you, Simone.
I love you too.
What are we doing for dinner tonight? Pasta with pesto.
Pasta with pesto. I'm also going to make some karai spiced fried chicken for you, but in the air fryer. That's all right.
Karai spiced. Is it pre-cooked? Where is it from?
Breaded and fried. It's from you.
Oh, yes. That sounds good.
You've had it before and you like it. And I did both oven and air fryer, and you preferred air fryer. So that's what I'm going to do.
You are a lovely wife. I am very lucky to be married to you.
You are a lovely husband, and I love you so much. And I love our kids, and they're little nerds. So,
oh, actually, should I try to deep fry things occasionally again?
It's such a waste of oil, and it messes up that whole shelf because it just covers everything in oil. Maybe we can wait just a little bit until the kids like it too, because then we have the whole family getting in on it.
Once I can justify it with the kids, okay. I want to get into deep
shoestring
frying
fries that you used to make, Yeah, I mean, there was
they
a
were
world.
so good.
Yeah, there's a world in which this needs to happen, but the world isn't here yet because we have 3 children who hate eating.
All right, I'll make more children, Simone. Dang, you don't have to twist my wrist on this.
Twist your arm. I will not. I will just go ahead and do it.
Oh, you'll just keep producing them?
Well, hopefully. We'll see. I'm so nervous about January.
Hopefully. Either the betting poll in one of the betting sites about us.
There are 2. Manifold has 2 different markets regarding how many kids we're going to have, by what year. I bet on both of them, of course. The big question is, when will I physically be unable to have more kids? This is not a mentally thing. So I think people should be making bets based on their knowledge of where I am from a uterine strength standpoint,
They're betting here. When we say this is her autistic special interest, I'm being serious here. They are betting here on the autistic man not having more trains in a few years. They are saying he has 50 trains. He couldn't possibly need more.
The question then is, how financially constrained will he be? How much, when will he? And I don't think it's a question of space. The autistic man finds space. So
he couldn't possibly fit more trains.
Trains find a way. Trains find a way.
This bedroom will be the train room next. He'll sleep in the closet.
Yeah.
There was a time when we did sleep in the closet in one of our houses because it was just like more reasonable than the bedroom.
I felt uncomfortable sleeping in that large of a bedroom. And the closet was so cozy. It's perfect. It was amazing. West Texas has huge closets. We do not have closets here. Mm-hmm. This is insane. We have 2 closets. No, you have closets.
The only room in the house was closets.
That's crazy.
But why? What's the point? You only need one outfit. Why would you have a closet?
Well, it is interesting that houses built in the 1700s didn't have running water. So there were no bathrooms. And then they didn't have, I guess, a lot of stuff. So there would be no need for closets. And now people are like literally, I imagine the pilgrims' confusion upon hearing that there's entire history an entire industry dedicated to storage units. And you have to explain to, Silence Dogood that there are people of all economic levels who have so much stuff that they pay a monthly rent to hold the stuff that they don't want to let go of.
So we, in one of our episodes, the one title, People Used to Like Their Parents, which I think is one of our better episodes, check it out if you haven't, where I go over the diaries of my great-great-grandfather. And he does an inventory in it of everything they own. And they have a shack, they have an outhouse, and the thing he was really proud of or thought of as very expensive was a flywheel for spinning fabric or something.
A flywheel for a spinning wheel.
A spinning wheel, yes.
A loom?
Did
they have a loom or a spinning wheel?
No, not a loom, a spinning wheel only.
Okay.
The rest they had to do themselves. And that was their assets. And nothing else. They had pigs, which he got mad at.
The spinning wheels were the 3D printers of their age. I mean, that was pretty cool. We don't have a 3D
right. They
printer.
actually were. It's like, oh, I don't need to go to the store to get thread. I can just make it.
Really cool. Yes. That's something to be proud of.
Yeah. So I get, you're right. They were the 3D printers. We don't think about that.
Yeah.
The spinning wheels were the 3D printers of their age. Oh, I made a component that I can use to make other things.
Yeah.
But just the you'd have like a list of property. I have a spinning wheel. Well, what else? Well, we dug a hole out there and we have like a little shack around it. And they're like, what else? And I've got a place where we all sleep together in the same room right there. And it's like, what else? It's like, well, my dad sold the pigs a bit early last year. I love it. His huge rant about his dad selling the pigs too early. Very much the Bitcoin of his generation.
Yeah, he sold early. Oh my gosh, that's it. My dad had some Bitcoin. At least
like, I have diamond hands with the swine market.
Yeah.
Anyway, love you to death.
I love you too. I'll go start dinner. You're so wonderful.
He strides through hallways decked in gold, so bright, like a sultan's palace glowing day and night. Marble pillars glimmer, echoing his name. A Persian king or president, one and the same. Shimmering drapes, plush rugs under each foot. A fortress of bling that no one can refute. Gold leaf on the ceiling, mirrors everywhere. He's bold, he's brash, who else would even dare? Where are the paintings of boats, of horses so rare? Random cottages in frames, why aren't they there? And where the model ships, decked out in their coats? We're asking our first Persian press, show us those boats. He bedazzles ballrooms, each corner ornate, like something out of ancient lore, or so we state. Halls paved in splendor, shining under the light. Surprise, surprise, he's got style, though it's quite a sight. He claims he's classy with flair unmatched. 1,000 chandeliers perfectly dispatched. Grand turrets, big fountains, exotic mystique. All hail our Persian prez, so lavish, unique. Where are the paintings of boats, of horses so rare? Random cottages in frames, why aren't they there? And where the model ships, decked out in their coats? We're asking our first Persian prez, show us those boats. Every corner gilded, every surface gleams, like Shah era fantasies fresh out of dreams. Marble upon marble, a treasure trove of hue. Yes, it's gaudy, but hey, it's Trump through and through. Where are the paintings of boats, of horses so rare? Random cottages in frames, why aren't they there? And where the model ships, those boats.